Hi folks, I'm Tristan from Noisegate, here taking a first look at the new Modal SKULPT synthesizer. So Modal made a name for themselves a few years back with the release of the 002 Hybrid Polysynth, which is absolutely an amazing instrument for anyone lucky enough to own one, but priced out of reach of many musicians. Fortunately, Modal have recently released this little guy, which is called SKULPT, a very portable, very affordable digital polysynth. Weighs less than 1 kilogram and can be powered either by USB or batteries. You can see it has this interesting design with a lid, which can also be used to prop it up off the desk, so it sits flat. If you use it without the lid, the battery compartment sits it up at this angle, which can really help with visibility depending on which angle you're sitting at relative to your desk. On the back of the unit, we can see we have full-size mid in and out ports, as well as sync in and out, line out, and headphone out. So to be clear, SKULPT is entirely digital, unlike Modal's previous instruments. But that's not to say it doesn't sound analog, because it certainly does. And that's as well as some of the great and more blatantly digital sounding FM capabilities. And at under $600 here in Australia, what you're getting for the money is pretty amazing. SKULPT is a 32 oscillator synth with a maximum of 4 voices. That's 8 oscillators per voice. Plus you can also chain together up to 4 units for a total of 16 voices and 128 oscillators. Pretty crazy. Taking a look at the front panel, you can see there's a lot crammed in here, which can be a little daunting, especially considering each knob and each button has a secondary function, accessed via the shift button. But once you wrap your head around it, you'll start to understand just how powerful this synth is. And to help you ease into it, a free software editor is provided, which runs on Mac, PC, iOS, or Android. And here it is running in full screen on PC. So the 32 oscillators are divided into 2 banks of 16, and the oscillators in each bank share the same waveform. Wave 1 here is for the first bank of 16 oscillators, and wave 2 is for the second bank. But instead of being restricted to several preset waveforms, each waveform is freely morphable. Wave 1 goes from sine wave, through a triangle wave, through a sawtooth wave, through a square wave with variable pulse width. Wave 2 starts off the same way, but ends up with filtered noise. And here we can mix the 2 waves together. We can also get some great FM sounds by using wave 2 to modulate wave 1. And we can even add ring modulation to make things even more hectic. So wave 2 is freely tunable, which really affects the way the frequency modulation and ring modulation works. Then we have the voices section, which is how we decide how the 32 oscillators are arranged. In poly mode, we can play up to 4 notes with 8 oscillators per note. And by default, they're perfectly in tune, but the spread parameter lets us simultaneously detune all the oscillators. So subtly, you can really fatten things up. Next we have the filter, which like the oscillator waveforms is freely morphable. So instead of having to choose between a low-pass filter or a high-pass filter or so on, we can morph between these modes. Here we're morphing from high pass through a band pass into a low pass. Really nice sounding filter as well. It really brings out the harmonic series in the waveform when you crank up the resonance. Last, I'm going to talk a bit about the sequencer, which is actually a real-time recorder, not a step sequencer. It's probably most useful to think of the sequencer as more of a performance looper, and you can automate up to 4 parameters. Automation here is referred to as parameter animation. You can of course always sequence the sculpt from a computer via USB, or from a hardware sequencer like the Arturia BeatStep or the Korg SQ1 via MIDI. But real-time recording in the sculpt is a lot of fun. We can record up to 4 bars, I'm just going to stick to 2 bars for the moment, and you can actually record the output of the arpeggiator. There's also a looping function where you can loop just a portion of your recording. And once you've recorded the arpeggiated part, you can disable the arpeggiator and just jam over the top. Thanks very much for watching. This has been a quick first look at the new Modal Sculpt. Please leave any questions or comments down below and we'll get to them all if we can.